News coming to you on this Monday, April 22nd, the year of our Lord, 2024. So yeah, first, call to action. Go to our website, yankeet.news, like, subscribe, donate, buy our stuff, and tell everybody. And of course, Sally Fink's site, the Continental Tribune, TheContinental.com, the Continental Tribune. Visit, like, donate, subscribe, and tell the universe. Yeah, we want to get those UFOs in on this too. Now, and remember, donate to Bob Mack for Congress, right? He's still in the fight. I just love here at the last minute, these other guys are showing up when Bob has been, continuing to push on this. Anyway, the theme tonight is they fail on purpose, and we'll get to that. So the first thing, and I've been wanting to do a project on artificial intelligence in government for some time. It's certainly finding its way into corporate environments as well. But my message is very simple, especially to these people who are trying to get these bills passed in Connecticut and other states in an effort to, quote, regulate AI. You can't regulate what you don't understand, and you can't explain. I'm going to say it again for emphasis. You can't regulate what you don't understand and what you can't explain, all right? And if you're not sure what I'm referring to, I'm going to say neural networks, which are also considered AI these days, even though they're worlds apart in terms of how they function. Yeah, so it's going on. They're in Hartford. Let's see, what's the name of that poor guy? Let's see, where did he go? In any event, the concern here is for the legislation being considered in Connecticut is that it could discourage economic development. And supposedly Governor Lamont is skeptical about it. Well, that's good to hear. But I'm just going to cite one passage that really summarizes the problem. Organizations, including labor unions and consumer advocacy groups, are pulling for more transparency from companies and greater legal recourse for citizens to sue over, hold on to your hat, AI discrimination. That's right. There have been for quite some time now, it's actually neural network-based software that can take your work history and decide, yep, we're going to have to fire you, buddy. But then to get that neural network program to be able to explain how they arrived at that decision, that ain't happening. It's a black box, okay? A black box. And that's the whole issue here with what they keep calling AI. Yeah, all right, so read it. The stupidity. That's the problem I'm having. It's the stupidity. Now, speaking of stupidity, now we're going to move on to my favorite communist. That would be Rosa DeLauro. So, as they say, when they're firing at you, that must mean you're right over the target. Okay, so she breaks out her communist anti-aircraft guns and she's shooting at the Republicans, saying this is the worst Congress ever. You know what? When a communist says it's the worst Congress ever, we're making progress. I can keep some hope. All right, where's the next one here? Excuse me. Oh, God. Bear with me. The other one I wanted to bring up, okay, there's a special project that we're working on. Just a quick backstory is that Eric had done some work with ChatGPT on the issue of homosexuals in government, which led to some other questions and discoveries. So we have this piece that we're going to be putting together at some point that explores it in what will hopefully be an objective manner. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention. Now, the other thing that's interesting, there was we see this all the time, but it got my attention. Renewed appeals for a Christian revival in America. All right, so we put up the link for this. It's there. Go check it out. Now, there's just one other thing I want to bring to your attention here. So this is a little hard to see, but I'm going to try and walk you through it, and it's far from complete. But in the center there, we see that circle. That's Joe Biden. But then all around him are all these people who influence him and have his ear in one way or another. So that would be his brother Jim, his son Hunter, his wife Jill, George Soros, Hillary and Bill, Obama, of course, China. But the one we want to focus on is his chief of staff. Now, people forget that the chief of staff in the White House is one of the most important and powerful positions in Washington, D.C. They function as the gatekeeper. They set the president's schedule. They decide who gets to come in and talk and who does not, okay? And like any position of power, it can be used. It can be overused. Well, James O'Keefe decided to try and figure out who really is running the White House. So on the one hand, Jim, I think you kind of discovered the obvious. Those who know that the chief of staff is controlling things in more ways than we realize. So great. So he's found it out, but let's find out. Who is this guy? His name is, if I can find it, Jeff Zients. That's how I say it, Z-I-E-N-T-S. Never heard of this guy, and I'm sure you never have either. So here's a picture of the character. That's Jeff Zients. He's the chief of staff for Biden. And, I'm trying to remember the name of the guy, Ron something, who was his predecessor, had been with Biden for decades. And they got replaced by this guy who is a Facebook board member, among other things. Ain't that cute, or was. So hopefully we can find out more about him, but this piece was suggesting that he's the kind of guy who will concoct noisy, stupid, pointless stories like Joe's uncle being eaten by cannibals. So anyway, you know about him now, go look him up. All right, so there's that. And moving on here. All right, this is frankly embarrassing, but Matt Gaetz, who just released a report before Congress about what's happening in Niger in Africa. And basically, this is second only to what happened at Bagram Air Force Base in Afghanistan. We have 1,000 soldiers, Army soldiers in Niger, and the Russian-backed military junta has agreed to release the 1,000 soldiers. And guess what? For deciding to release them, the junta gets to have a $100 million air base. How nice, how nice. This kind of pathetic conduct continues, and that there's no one around to discipline them, to make them accountable for this, continues to boggle my mind. But there they are. And so the Army's been saying we're stranded, etc. All right, next story. This is a little disturbing. I like to think of the Germans as being a very smart culture. And so here's a story from The Economist, of all people, arguing that Germany is, quote, flunking the education test. Now, for what it's worth, it's an international score called PISA. And I'll just quickly highlight that in math, the Germans have, for 15-year-olds, have gone from 515 down to 475 in, 8 years, okay? And the pandemic in particular had a really negative impact on them as well. When you look at reading, that's from 510 down to 480. These are significant declines, ladies and gentlemen. There's no getting around it. So I just have to show that to you, okay? That's what's happening in Germany. I'm not sure what their excuses are. What I want to believe is in a situation like this where Germany is showing that it too is showing degrading academic performance, that they will be able to reverse this at some point. Germany is another country that has always put a high value on education, so I don't see how they're going to allow this to go on. Now this story, if there's anyone that is a cause for outrage and anger of the highest order, this is it. So I'll just read a few short passages. Eva Edel turned 10 years old in a World War II death camp. So she's now 89 years old. She's passionate about being pro-life. She was in front of an abortion clinic where she was arrested, tried, and convicted on what's called the Freedom of Access to Clinic Entrances Act. This elderly woman faces up to 11 years in jail and $350,000 in fine. As she said it herself, she believed she may die in a United States prison. Here she was saved from the Germans during World War II, only to find that the end of her life will come in a similar setting in America. That's worse than ironic, worse. So the article goes on, it gives a lot more of her background. You know, this is a woman who understands the value of life. And when you look at her story, it just heightens, as far as I'm concerned, all the more how a woman can decide that she doesn't want that baby inside her. I don't get it, neither did she. Meantime, Supreme Court, some of you may have heard about this, is oral arguments over what I think is called, I want to say Fisher versus U.S. Okay, so this is the application of a biased approach to prosecuting January 6 prisoners in the, Fisher versus United States. The problem is that you had the lawyers defending for the federal government before the justices, claiming that being selective in their prosecution was, quote, okay. Well, guess what? It's not. I mean, what planet are we on when we're supposed to have rule of law, which means you stick to the application of the law rather than being selective about the law? It just boggles the mind. Thankfully, Justices Neil Gorsuch and Samuel Alito asked some very troubling questions that shows how inconsistent they are. So the bad actor in this is Biden's Solicitor General Elizabeth Prelogar. The link is up. Go check it out. Now, this is unpleasant. So there apparently is a gentleman who had placed a death threat call to some election workers in Michigan. So bad, you shouldn't do that. And I would say to the person who made the call, you should get together with Mike Lindell and focus on having paper ballots being used in all the different counties around the country. That's a much more constructive, beneficial way to use your time than making death threats. Just saying. And but the point I want to make about this story is that there is this underlying concern and worry. Many people feel it. I think I can say millions of people feel it. And, you know, it's not being addressed in any sincere way. All we know is that there are different groups who are working to make sure that there will be election integrity. And I say support them as fully as you can. You know, True the Vote, Fight Voter Fraud, other groups, yeah. Okay. Now, you've heard me carry on from time to time when I talk about the climate hoax, and this continues. So this is a really good article by Francis Menton, and as part of the article, he highlights, let's see, how many items is it here? Well, he doesn't, all right. The total list is 193 items from January 2021 to the current day. Just to read off a few: canceling the Keystone XL pipeline, issuing a moratorium on oil and gas leasing activities in the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge, rejoining the Paris Climate Agreement, issuing new GHG emission regulations for heavy-duty vehicles, halting permitting for new LNG export facilities, and there's one other recent development I'm trying to remember. But the point is, there has been a relentless attack on the oil and gas industry by Biden. And they're looking for any place where they can slow it down, cut it back, and make it less a part of the energy picture in America. Bad. Bad. But when you have to do things like that, it shows that you don't have a winning formula. Just had to say that. All right, now the title I put up is that Yale finally copies Columbia University when it comes to removing protesters. Yay, good for you, Yale, good for you. So yeah, so police stormed the Yale University campus and with riot gear, 47 are arrested as hundreds stage an anti-Israel protest. Now the thing that we should also point out is while I'm kind of making fun of Yale because their response was so slow compared to other schools, this has been going on around the country. And somebody pointed out that when you look at these protest groups and they're camping, where they're camping out, the tents look the same. The tents look the same. So that tells you that this is an organized effort on a national level. You might want to keep that in mind. All right. Now, again, we continue to follow the events of January 6th in our series here, and there are two related stories. First, it says Prison Bureau closes, quote, rape club prison, which is the FCI Dublin in California. So just to read a little snippet here, since 2021, at least 8 FCI Dublin employees have been charged with sexually abusing inmates. 5 have pleaded guilty, 2 were convicted at trial, including the former warden, and another case is pending. The January 6 inmates that were held at this facility included a grandmother. Lovely. It just shows, once again, I have to use the same word, this is how evil these people are. You take one of the worst prisons in America, and you take somebody who's been swept up in this J6 nonsense, who's a grandmother, and you put her in a hellhole like that. There's a special place in hell for people like that. Oh my God. So the last one, this is from LewRockwell. Let me read the title. 72 types of Americans that are considered potential terrorists in official government documents. You can now be considered a potential terrorists just because of your religious or political beliefs. Now, I just want to point out this is more serious than it appears, because when the label terrorist gets slapped on you, courtesy of laws that were passed, boy, at least 7 or 8 years ago, those people who are tagged as terrorists suddenly lose all their constitutional rights. So you could find yourself in a rather difficult situation should some of these communist clowns come after you. Just to rattle off a few, those who talk about individual liberties, those who advocate for states' rights, those who want to make the world a better place, anti-gay, anti-immigrant, anti-Muslim, the patriot movement, and on it goes. He lists 72 of these here. And so these would be all red flags for the FBI, for the Department of Justice, and to decide maybe you're really a terrorist. So we got some issues here to fix out. We can only hope and pray that Trump wins, and then we'll begin to root this kind of crap out. So until next week, see you guys.